Okay, so full disclosure, I wanted to do a blind first Let's Play of Dark Souls, or at least a relatively blind one. I played this game before, but I never beat it, and it's also been probably about a decade since I last played it, so I figured, you know, that'll be relatively blind, and I'll be pretty clueless. And that's very true. Honestly, it's still pretty true, because I didn't get super far before we unfortunately ran into issues with the recording, and now we're missing a big chunk, and I can't use that save file now. It's been a bit of a cluster trying to iron out issues with recording this version of the game. So why am I going with the Prepare to Die edition of this game? Well, because it's the edition that I own. I do not own Remastered. I do not own this on any consoles. This is the version of the game that I have, and I don't feel like shelling out about another $40 to buy the game again. So we are using the DS Fix, obviously. You can see in the corner there, DS Fix enabled. We are using some texture mods and a fairly subtle reshade. That is it. No other mods. And as far as DS Fix goes, like, I've decided to keep it locked to 30 frames because the game has problems if you push it above about 30 frames a second. It's just here to help fix some other problems. I do not have the multiplayer mod in that restores some of the multiplayer. It's just going to be completely offline because this version of the game is now complete. Like, the online just is, the official online is just no longer there. So unfortunately, that is going to make some of the covenants really difficult to do unless I wanted to resort to, like, I believe there's an item duplication glitch that I might be able to use to, like, get more of the covenant items that you need to advance that otherwise would be really difficult to get without the multiplayer, but I don't want to deal with that the first time I'm trying to beat this game. So one of the few things that I'm going to be allowed to look up are things relating to covenants. And basically that's just to check, like, are these actually doable in single player or not? And on that note, in looking up the covenants, I noticed that a lot of the miracles in this game, the faith-based magic, seems to be very strongly connected to covenants. And so it seems like a faith build might be kind of difficult to do now that the online isn't a thing. At least not without more in-depth knowledge of the game that I do not have. So I will be mostly avoiding miracles for this build. I might pick up a few very basic ones, but it's definitely not the build I'm going to be going for. I'm currently thinking that I'm probably going to go with a Dex Int build that tends to be my default that I like in a lot of different RPGs. So yeah, I don't care about vitality that much. I mean, nice to have, but not critical. I do care about attunement because I don't think you start getting attunement slots until at least 10. So if we start with less than 10, we won't have any attunement slots to work with, I think. And I do care about endurance. Equipment load and stamina are both pretty important. I don't care, like I said, don't care about strength that much other than making sure that it either that is 10 or gets to 10 relatively quickly. Dexterity I care about a lot. And intelligence I care about a lot. So warriors probably not for me. Knights also not for me. Invested in faith a bit more than I would find useful, I think. Wanderer has a decent amount of starting attunement, has the strength that I want, and a decent amount of dex, and a decent amount of intelligence. That might be okay. And starts with a scimitar, which is a decent curved sword. Thief. Now, the only problem with Thief, Because I'm looking at the stats and I'm like, okay, the attunement's fine. The endurance is low, but that can be fixed. The strength would need all of 1 point. Dex is very high. Not overly invested in resistance. Little higher faith than I would care for, but... 1 point would maybe let me just get the healing miracle if I wanted it. Not a complete waste, arguably. But the problem with Thief that I don't want is I don't want the Master Key when I still haven't beaten the game. I don't want to be sequence breaking, even though I know for a fact that it would let me get to the Valley of the Drakes very quickly. I do know that much. Like, it would let me go right down to the New Londo ruins, open that gate, be right in the Valley of the Drakes, and I know that that has a few items that I might like, and it would let me get to, like, the later part of Blighttown to get the, what's it called? The Ayato. It's one of the katana-type weapons, although I think that's actually in the depths. That's in, like, the upper part of Blighttown, the way you'd normally approach it, actually. It would let me get to some areas that I might find interesting early on, but it might also let me blunder into completely new places that I haven't been yet super early. And I kind of want to go through this game in roughly the intended order. I know that, like, I'm probably going to wander off in random directions anyway, but I think having the Master Key would just compound that problem. Bandit. Starts with the spider shield. That's a big plus. I like that shield. I know that I like that shield. There are ways, of course, to get it other than starting with it, so it's not the be-all end-all. And the problems doesn't start with 10 attunement, doesn't start with great attunement at all, really. Starts way more invested in strength than I want, although 14 strength I think is necessary for some of the weapons that I found interesting. I'm not sure if I want to stop at 10 strength or if I want to take it to 14. In this case, I would guess I would just have 14. The dexterity is very low starting out, and the intelligence is very low starting out, so it just doesn't have the stat spread that I want. Hunter. Kind of a bit more all-round than I'd like, and the magic stats are not great. Sorcerer. Really great attunement. That's nice. Like, I think 1 more point in attunement would actually get me even another slot at that point. I think it goes like 10, 12, 14, 16, 19, and then after that you start getting some diminishing returns. Obviously your vitality and endurance are stupidly low. Your strength is quite low, and your dex isn't great. You're like super invested in magic, which, I mean, if I wanted to have like magic weapons, which start to scale off of intelligence, I think, I'm not sure, then that might actually work out pretty well, but that's really leaning into the magic side instead of magic dex. Pyromancer, which is what I started off as the previous 2 times. Tattered Robe set is freaking great, has great resistances, and in order to get the set of it that's in the game, that's normally in the game if you want it and you didn't start with it, is going to be a nice walk through a swamp, which is just lovely. However, let's see. The attunement starts at a decent amount. Vitality and endurance are okay. Strength is... I think if I'm going to start with 12 strength, I'd just take it to 14 so that I could use a lot, like, of different weapons at that point. Dexterity's a bit low. Intelligence is decent, so that's a maybe. Cleric is obviously going to be over-invested in faith for what I want to do, so that's going to be a no. And then the Deprived just starts with 11 in everything, which is going to be not exactly what I want. So I'm thinking either Pyromancer again and just take the strength to 14, and from there start going into Dex and Intelligence. The Sorcerer, on the assumption that I'm just going to be able to raise strength a tiny bit, and then from there, mostly dexterity and probably at least a little more health than that. 8 vitality is a bit low even for me. And I would also start with, I believe, soul arrows. I assume they start you with that because that seems like the most basic sorcery. I'm not sure. Yeah, I honestly, in part, just to try something different, I think I'm going to try Sorcerer. I may regret it. I I'd like both of these, but and I still haven't figured out what this old witch's ring is supposed to do, so we're taking it along. And female character, please. Now I'm just going to be doing a lot of the cosmetic stuff, so back in a moment. Third time's the charm, hopefully. And yeah, I can see actually in the starting equipment there, we're going to be starting with soul arrows. So I'm giving up I'm giving up an extra set of fireballs, but I'm getting soul arrows. So
I think you can branch out to the pyromancy.
oh yeah, you most definitely can. And I think since I'm going to be more invested in intelligence this time,
it might
we'll see which one ends up being better.
Yeah, pyro doesn't scale, but this might help your soul arrows be really good.
Yeah, because previously I wasn't super invested in intelligence, so the soul arrows weren't that impressive.
Of ancients, the world was unformed, shrouded by fog. A land of grey crags, arch trees, and everlasting dragons. But then there was fire, and with fire came disparity. Heat and cold, life and death, and of course, light and dark. Then from the dark they came and found the souls of lords within the flame. Nito, the first of the dead. The Witch of Izalith and her daughters of Chaos. Gwyn, the Lord of Sunlight, and his faithful knights. And the furtive pygmy, so easily forgotten. With the strength of lords, they challenged the dragons. Gwyn's mighty bullets glued apart their stone skins. Witches weaved great firestorms. Nito unleashed a miasma of death and disease. And Seath, the Scaleless, betrayed his own, and the dragons were no more. Thus began the Age of Fire. But soon the flames will fade, and only dark will remain. Even now, there are only embers. And man sees not light, but only endless nights. And amongst the living are seen carriers of the accursed dark side. Yes, indeed. The dark sign brands the undead. And in this land, the undead are corralled and led to the north. Where they are locked away to await the end of the world. This is your fate.
Why he didn't just toss the key down? Like, why did it have to be an entire corpse? Okay, so yeah, I don't have a catalyst to actually cast the soul arrows, so all I have for the moment is the straight sword hilt, I think. Yeah. The hilt of this lost sword was found discarded in the undead asylum, only slightly better than one's bare hands and not recommended for extensive use. Be certain to find a replacement quickly. And let's see, what else do I have? Black separation crystal. This black crystal, long a symbol of farewell, is granted to banished undead. The crystal sends phantoms back to their homes or sends you back to yours. Beware of fickle use of this item if you intend to nurture relations. So I think that would like banish people that you summoned to help you, or if you were summoned and you wanted to leave, you could use that. I don't think it would let you get rid of invaders, but obviously none of that's going to really be a concern at this point. The dark sign signifies an accursed undead. Those branded with it are reborn after death, but will one day lose their mind and go hollow. Death triggers the dark sign, which returns its bearer to the last bonfire rested at, but at the cost of all humanity and souls. And then the dungeon cell key that night was so kind to just toss into my cell. Key to the dungeon of the undead asylum to the north. A mysterious knight, without saying a word, shoved a corpse down into the cell, and on its person was this key. Who was this knight, and what was his purpose? There may be no answers, but one must still forge ahead. And then, yeah, soul arrows inflict magic damage, making them effective against iron armor, tough scales, and other physically resilient materials. And the spells themselves, I don't believe scale, but your catalyst does. So that's what affects it. If I'm understanding things properly. Which is a big if. So yeah, compared to the tattered robes, the sorcerer stuff seems to be kind of crappy. The defenses, other than I think magic and lightning might be a little bit better, but fire and is significantly worse, and the physical damage reductions I think are a little worse. But more importantly to me, the poison resistance is not nearly as good, so Blighttown is going to be an absolute pain when we get to that. But anyway, let's take a look. Hat worn by proper sorcerers who studied at Venheim Dragon School. The majority take pride in having studied at the academy and look down on breaking the formal dress code established for sorcerers. Well, I will definitely be breaking it pretty promptly. And then these are just tutorial messages like, you know, camera controls, basic attack, that kind of thing. Hi, dude. Hello, asylum demon and guy that you apparently tossed through the wall.
That's a neat little environmental detail.
Well, if you're just gonna stay in your corner, I'm okay with that. And bonfire. Can't really do anything here yet. Even attuning magic doesn't mean anything when I can't cast, and I think the only spell I have are the soul arrows that are already attuned. But that is where I will revive if I die. The door doesn't open from here. Okay, bye.
It didn't even get a chance to really start the boss soundtrack.
Yep, nope, I'm out of that.
You got out.
Apparently, if you manage to kill him there, you can get some extra stuff. I don't know what, but I think I remember hearing that somewhere. But, yeah, I'm not going to manage that, I don't think. Maybe if I started with the black fire bombs instead. Here, get a small leather shield, so shield's gonna be a little bit different. I think it's actually slightly better than the one the pyromancer gets. It's still not amazing, mind you. Small leather covered round shield, reinforced in critical spots with metal. Small shields are always less stable, but landing critical hits after a parry is easier. So is this a good time to mention that I have not yet managed to successfully parry anything? Yeah. So, that's something that I probably should take the time to learn at some point. Okay, and now I actually have a proper dagger. He's just going to keep running around the corner and give me time to equip that. Thank you. So I get a dagger instead of an axe. Which is fine. I honestly wasn't a huge fan of the axe. Every time you miss with the thing, you kinda stagger. Whereas the dagger doesn't have that problem, at the cost of shorter range and lower damage. Yep, okay, see you in there. Yep, okay.
Oh, you. You're no hollow. Thank goodness. I'm done for, I'm afraid. I'll die soon, then lose my sanity. I wish to ask something of you. You and I are both undead. Hear me out, will you? Regrettably, I have failed in my mission, but perhaps you can keep the torch lit. There is an old saying in my family. Thou who art undead art chosen, and thine exodus from the undead asylum maketh pilgrimage to the land of ancient lords. When thou ringeth the bell of awakening, the fate of the undead thou shalt know. Well, now you know, and I can die with hope in my heart. Oh, one more thing. Here, take this. An Estus flask, an undead favorite.
Thank you.
Oh, and this. Now I must bid farewell. I would hate to harm you after death. So go now, and thank you.
And no offense, but even in that oddly long and specific family saying, there was no mention of the fact that there are actually 2 bells of awakening. Well, yep. Gotta just get out of here now.
Yeah, that guy was... Yeah. Got thrown through a ceiling.
That's what it looked like, yeah, because he was up on the roof when we saw him before, and there was a hole in the ceiling. So maybe that there are, I guess it's pretty much already confirmed there are multiple asylum demons around, because we saw one as we were leaving our cell, and then another one jumped off the roof after us. So there could be a bunch of them around here for all we know. Okay, yep, had to use the key that he gave us. And there's my catalyst. So that, I think I'm going to put it on the right hand for the time being, because I'd like to have the option of having the shield with it. That'll definitely be the case as when we get a better shield. Okay, come on.
And now you can cast those soul arrows, I think.
There's the backstab.
Not that you need against these guys.
Yeah, I will say the backstab is still a little bit weird in this game. If you come at them like directly from behind, it usually doesn't backstab. It's like you have to hit it as you're circling around and are just coming up to their back. Oh, you have a bow. But it helped you. And this guy, which is where it tries to teach you how to parry if you actually stop to read the messages. I mean, I could try, but
or
that's,
you could just do that.
Also an option.
I mean, you win.
At some point, the fact that I don't know how to parry is going to destroy me, yes. But
until you learn.
We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Now, asylum demon. And I know that if I try to stay on this balcony and like be cute and cast magic, he will hop up there and wreck the balcony. Figured that out first time through. Oh, no. Come on, do the big swing. That's easier to deal with. Yeah, do that. I thought I would get past the pillar. Oh, should not have committed to that. Let's get a little bit more distance. One more. Got a humanity, and I can hear more of them somewhere. I don't know where, but I can hear them. Possibly below, because the other one was below us, but I think at some point we get to come back here, and I guess we deal with it then. Don't know, didn't get that far. But I know that we need to come back here at the very least in order to do trades with Snuggly the Crow, because there's his nest. And that is going to be the other thing we're allowed to look up, is I'm allowed to look up what the Snuggly the Crow trades are. Because the game is very obtuse about that. And I'd like to just know, so...
Only in the ancient legends it is stated that one day an undead shall be chosen. To leave the undead asylum in pilgrimage to the land of the ancient lords. Lordran.
You know, between that and the fact that like Londo for Anor Londo or New Londo is just one letter off from London. FromSoft isn't so great with
names.
Yeah, they're not so great with that, are they?
Yeah, the world names. I suppose it's more creative than the ones on Enchanted Arms, where they are literally real cities, except Junk City.
Yeah.
Which is just junk.